The NFL Players Association is launching an investigation into Jacksonville Jaguars' new head coach, Urban Meyer. Meyer made headlines Tuesday when he said COVID-19 vaccinations were taken into consideration when deciding who would make the team's final 53-man roster. The NFL has implemented new, more stringent COVID-19 protocols ahead of the 2021 season. In response, the Jaguars released a statement saying, quote, "Availability is one of the many factors taken into account when making roster decisions. We have vaccinated and unvaccinated players on our roster, and no player was released because of vaccination status." The investigation coincides with the New England Patriots' decision to cut veteran quarterback Cam Newton after 1 year with the team. Newton was sidelined earlier this preseason as part of the league's COVID-19 safety protocols. The 2015 MVP has publicly said he's not vaccinated. Joining us now for more on this is CBS Sports HQ senior NFL reporter Jonathan Jones. Hi, Jonathan. Welcome. So the Jaguars are adamant that a player's vaccination status had no impact on whether or not he made the 53-man team. So why has Coach Meyer's comments on a player's vaccine status touched off this backlash?
Well, he said the quiet part out loud, and that's really the issue. Listen, as a journalist, I have no issue with a head football coach being honest with the media. It just seems that Urban Meyer was a little too honest in his remarks yesterday to the assembled media there in Jacksonville, where he said, listen, we take everything into account when it comes to cutting down and culling our roster to 53 players, as well as the 16-man practice squad that will be announced later on today. And in part of that, it involves availability. You hear the old cliche across football, your greatest ability is your availability. Well, due to these protocols in the NFL that are jointly agreed upon by the players' union, if you are unvaccinated, you are certainly at a competitive disadvantage as it relates to being a high-risk close contact, certainly if you test positive. But even talking about that high-risk close contact, if you miss a test, you then have to go back into the testing cadence and protocol of being tested 5 consecutive days, having to miss those practices and being away from the team facilities. So it puts you as the player, it puts your team at a disadvantage if you are unvaccinated under these protocols. And Urban Meyer was just saying what almost every other coach feels, they just know he can't say it out loud.
But that's what I'm having trouble understanding. Why can't he say it out loud? I mean, we have all kinds of vaccination mandates that are being put in place at schools now and private businesses. I'm not quite sure why they can't have they don't have vaccination mandates, but why can't they have vaccination mandates across professional sports for all the reasons you just laid out?
Well, the NFL has wanted to have a vaccine mandate for the players. The players, again, are unionized. The NFLPA has not agreed to a vaccine mandate, and so there is no vaccine mandate. There is an ostensible mandate among staff, coaches, football operations, personnel folks, equipment managers, et cetera, the folks who help make sure the game goes along, where they essentially, due to protocols, cannot do their jobs if they are not vaccinated. So it's lose your job or get vaccinated and continue doing your job. So we are seeing that more than 99% of all personnel members in the NFL, staffers and coaches, have been vaccinated. Meanwhile, as of yesterday morning, before all of this roster cut downs and reconfigurations were done, the NFL saw its player population at 92%, greater than 92% vaccinated, and that is up and it has been steadily rising over the past couple of months. It's so high and it really beats out all the other demographics because life in the NFL as a player is much easier if you are vaccinated. Right now, you only have to be tested once a week if you're vaccinated. It used to be once every 14 days. That was recently just adjusted earlier this week. Meanwhile, if you are unvaccinated, you have to test every single day. And you have to test at your team facilities, which means, hey, this upcoming Labor Day weekend, if you're unvaccinated, you can't get out of town for a few days when you don't have practice. You have to stay at the team facilities or in that town and be tested every single day. And so there is not that mandate. There's not that mandate for NFL officials either, but we are seeing across some sports, we're seeing 100% in the WNBA, even though there wasn't a mandate. We're seeing it among NBA officials, there being a mandate. But in the NFL, the NFL Players Association did not accept the NFL's proposal for a vaccine mandate, and so there is not a vaccine mandate.
And so, as you said, the NFL has been working, though, to implement stricter COVID-19 protocols across the league. Considering that and considering everything you just explained about how much easier it is to be vaccinated and be in the NFL and how most of the NFL is already vaccinated, what sort of official, pushback could Meyer face if the Players Association finds that he was trying to implement some sort of vaccine mandate, or if that's what they determined that he was trying to do?
Right. Yeah. I mean, he certainly is going to get a stern talking to. But beyond that, if they can find that he violated the rules, I think that the potential penalties would be a fine of the team, a fine of Urban Meyer, who is in his first year as an NFL head coach, a highly decorated college coach, but maybe not really understanding that, the college players weren't unionized. These guys are. There are some things that you just can't do, and he's really struggled in that transition from college to the NFL in a number of respects. The other thing, and the biggest sort of penalty, and I don't think that we're anywhere close to that really with the Jags in this scenario, is the Jaguars could lose a draft pick if the investigation turns up that they were cutting guys for the sole purpose or reason of their vaccination status. Again, really, really hard to prove that, and I don't think that anything in Urban Meyer's statement would say there's no question about it, this is why they cut X, Y, or Z player, but that is what the investigation could turn up, and those are the potential penalties.
And so, can you explain a little bit better how the NFL's new COVID-19 protocol then differs between vaccinated and unvaccinated players? I mean, obviously the requirements for testing are going to be a lot heavier for those who are unvaccinated, correct?
That's right. And as we talked about just a moment ago, if you are unvaccinated, you have to be tested every day. If you are unvaccinated, you have to wear masks throughout the team facilities. You aren't able to, again, go out of town. You aren't really able to eat in the cafeteria with other players. You can't use the sauna and the hot tub, for example. And the weight room, the rules and restrictions are different for unvaccinated players as opposed to vaccinated players. If you are vaccinated, again, you only have to be tested once a week. You can opt in to be tested more than once a week if you wish. And all the NFL teams with their vaccinated player pool, they're going to have rolling tests throughout the week. So it's not going to be, hey, all the vaccinated guys come in on Wednesday and get tested and that's it. They're going to try to do it throughout the week. So if there is some sort of outbreak among vaccinated players, as we have seen with so many breakthrough infections, they would be able to catch it a little quicker in that instance. We have seen that the NFL, in an effort to get more and more guys vaccinated, again, they decided that one of the things they wanted to do was make life easier for those players and sort of incentivize them. And in doing so, they said, you're not going to have to test every single day or anywhere close to it. Again, they went from one test every 14 days, now down with all of these breakthrough infections, 68 infections from August 1st to August 21st among their entire pool, vaccinated and unvaccinated players and personnel. It's less than a 1% incidence rate. However, what they did see was that among the unvaccinated players, the incidence rate was 7 times higher than that of those who were fully vaccinated.
And Jonathan, of course, Meyer's comments come just as the New England Patriots cut Cam Newton, who had COVID last year and had to miss 5 practices and a game recently after possible exposure. Coach Bill Belichick says Newton's vaccination status had nothing to do with him being released. Let's listen to what he said.
Did Cam's vaccination status have anything to do with him being released?
No. Look, you guys keep talking about that, and, I would just point out that I don't know what the number is. I mean, you guys can look it up. You have the access to a lot of information, but the number of players and coaches and staff members that have been infected by COVID in this training camp who have been vaccinated is a pretty high number. So I wouldn't lose sight of that.
So, still under the new guidelines, an unvaccinated player is subject to 5 days away from the team for just one positive test. And with Cam's COVID history, How do you think that could have impacted the organization's decision to cut him ahead of next week, week one? Because like you said, availability is an issue. Whether or not a player can play is an issue. So how are other teams weighing this potential risk ahead of the season?
That's exactly right. And we just saw, again, the trouble that Urban Meyer got into or will be getting himself into by saying what a number of coaches have told me off the record, have told any number of reporters. Bill Belichick, it does not behoove or benefit Bill Belichick or the Patriots organization if vaccination status were actually considered in cutting Cam Newton. It does not help them to say that out loud. In fact, if it had really anything to do with it, or if it had a lot to do with it, they should do everything that they can to say that it wasn't that. And I'm not calling anyone a liar or anything like that, but it just doesn't help you to say, yes, that's why we did that. But Cam Newton missed 3 practices over 5 days because what the Patriots called a, quote, misunderstanding as he left the team facilities to go to a club-approved medical appointment. We don't know exactly where the misunderstanding was, if it was on the part of the Patriots with the NFL rules, or if it was on the part of Cam Newton not understanding the rules or misapplying the rules perhaps. But no matter what, when he came back, he got repetitions with the first team offense, and then he was able to start in the ensuing exhibition game against the New York Giants. But Mac Jones, the rookie out of Alabama, has outplayed Cam, and so he won the starting job, no question about that. But why isn't Cam still on the team? There are a confluence of factors, and a real composite is a word that Bill Belichick has used, using any number of factors. I think a reasonable person can conclude that Cam being unvaccinated, potentially putting other players at risk, or even just simply not being available if he were to break protocol or miss a test or test positive again, that's not something that you need from a backup quarterback. And that could be one of the reasons that Cam Newton is no longer an employee of the New England Patriots.
All right. Well, Jonathan Jones, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.